Hello, welcome back to the part two of Plus One Sociology MCQs, PYQs that we were discussing. So, the part two has again five chapters, and we'll be discussing the MCQs chapter wise. So, part two, chapter one is social structure, stratification, and social processes in society. So let's dive into the MCQs. The clash of interest implies is called cooperation, conflict, competition, accommodation. So, in this chapter, we are actually dealing with the process of cooperation, conflict, and competition and all. And the easy way to identify is where there is clash of interest mentioned, it is always a conflict. So, that's the answer. Which among the following is an example of associative social process? Again, the options are conflict, cooperation, competition, and contestation. Look at the options given. And which one do you think is an associative social process? So associative means coming together. And among the options, only one thing there is that mentions or kind of expresses coming together, and that is cooperation. So that is the answer. Okay. The first thinker who focused on the concept of social structure is who? Herbert Spencer. You will have to remember these questions like this only. So, who focused on the concept of social structure first? Herbert Spencer. Material achievement that enhances the quality of life is called what? Life opportunities. They are called life opportunities. In Durkheim's opinion, mechanical solidarity is the solidarity of sameness. Durkheim talks about organic and mechanical solidarity, and mechanical solidarity is what comes when we are similar in nature. The solidarity comes so naturally, and that's essentially the question. It is the solidarity of sameness. That is an effort to compromise and coexist despite conflict, despite the existence of conflict. What do we call when we try to compromise? It is accommodation. Again, remember these terms and the exact definitions of them. The term used by Karl Marx to refer to the situation in which workers lose their content in work and control over the product of their labor. What is the process called? Alienation is the process wherein which workers no longer have the control over the product of the labor, the process of production, nor themselves. So there are like different angles to alienation: alienation from the product, alienation from the process of production, alienation from managing it, alienation from themselves and their satisfaction now. And it was Karl Marx who used the term. Chapter 2: Social Change and Social Order in Rural and Urban Society. That is a general term that is used to denote any kind of change in society. Any kind of change is social change. This chapter will be discussing change, social change basically in rural and urban society. The change that takes place slowly over a long period of time is evolutionary change. Social Darwinism is an example for dash type of change. So, social change can be evolutionary and revolutionary. As I mentioned the difference before, evolutionary change is a gradual and a very slowly taking uh, process change. Social Darwinism, for example, it is an evolutionary change. So that's the difference. Evolutionary, on the other hand, would be an abrupt and a radical change, which happens very fast. Who is the proponent of the idea survival of the fittest? Survival of the fittest was propounded by Charles Darwin. An example for revolutionary change is French Revolution. It was a revolutionary change. An example for structural change is paper currency. Now, social changes again can be structural and cultural and all. What is a structural change? Structural change means the giving the example here, coming of paper currencies, for example, it changes the whole nature in which we deal with our money, right? The coming of paper currencies changes it. Earlier, it was another system. maybe barter system, or any other system of exchange that we used to make. With the coming of paper currency, what happens is the whole structure changes, and uh, it then kind of determines everything else, our economy, the way we do transactions and all. So that is a structural change. Even the coming of digital payments have caused structural change, basically. The structural changes can cause cultural changes, which is another topic. But these are structural decisions, and thus structural changes are what they are. An example of changes in values and beliefs. So, prohibition of child labor is an example. Now, what is the change in values and beliefs? Changing in values and beliefs is a cultural change. So, example of a cultural change is prohibition of child labor. How? Culturally, the idea mm, of employing the child, or that it is not ideal to use children as labor, understanding the consequences of it, realizing the importance of education, employment, and all, has led to prohibition of child labor, and this brings about a cultural change, or it is a result of a cultural change. It can be looked at in both ways. Now, whose study is the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism? It was a study by Max Weber. The tendency within established social systems that resists and regulates change. This is social order. So there is an existing social order, and it always resists change. It always resists and regulates certain revolutionary changes. And what is it called? It is social order. So when the social change happens, the older social order are left behind and a new social order comes up. This is what happens with globalization, privatization, liberalization, and all. The older social order is left behind and a new social order comes up. So there is always a resistance to change. Change doesn't come easily unless it's a very revolutionary thing that is happening. Change is very gradual, it's a very slow process. The situation in which power becomes stable and settled and the parties involved become accustomed to it is called domination. Now, power and domination is different. When power is settled and both the parties involved is acknowledging that power, that is called domination. They are used to it. The employer and the employee, there is domination in it because they both the parties involved has become accustomed to it. So there is a very clear power imbalance, but when power becomes settled and stable, it becomes domination. The process by which people are made to accept or adapt to domination is called legitimation. When people accept the power, what do we say? We say that the power is legitimized. People accept the power of politicians whom they choose to represent themselves. Right? We vote for them, but unless we legitimize or acknowledge that they have that power to do things for us, represent us in the legislative assembly, it doesn't exist. So that is called legitimation of power. Legitimated power is authority. Legitimate power is authority. When people acknowledge your power, hmm, and legitimate it, it becomes authority. So these terms related to power, domination, legitimation, authority, all these terms, you need to have clarity about what it involves. That is an explicitly codified norm or rule. When it is codified explicitly, it is law. Law is codified, norms or rules are not codified. That's the difference. The countercultures among youth is a good example of what? Contestation. Now, again, contestation is another form of resistance or, rebellion to change or maybe the existing social order. They are contesting the existing beliefs or culture for that matter. That is what countercultures represent. Countercultures thus represent contestation. Dash has monopoly over the use of legitimate violence within its jurisdiction. This is a characteristic of state. Even the definition of state involves the monopoly over the use of legitimate violence within its jurisdiction. These are all important features of state which you need to keep in mind and also remember the definition. The 2011 census shows that almost dash percent of the population now lives in urban areas. How much is it? Almost 31% of the population lives in urban areas, according to 2011 census. Remember the percentage. What is the major reason for the emergence of dominant castes? Dominant castes emerge due to land reforms. The concept of dominant caste, you might uh, remember, dominant castes are the ones which has political strength, economic power, and also their larger number. So land reforms has played a major role in making certain castes with a lot of land very dominant due to their economic power and all. The conversion of mixed neighborhoods into single communities called ghettoization. So it was before a mixed neighborhood. Now it has become a single community. So people belonging to a certain or particular community live there. That is called ghettoization. It has become a ghetto. Means only certain people, certain community people live there. That's what the process is called. The conversion is called ghettoization. You call the place ghetto. The the negative connotation attached to it is not what we're talking about. When it becomes a single community neighborhood, it's called uh, the process is called ghettoization. Next question. The creation of affluent neighborhoods that are separated from their surroundings by walls and gates with controlled entry and exit are gated communities. Now, this is something that we are very uh, aware of, right? There are gated communities. Rich people live together and there is control over who can enter the area and who can exit the area. And this is totally separated from the surroundings by big, big walls and gates because they don't want to, because it's a vibe living in an affluent area. And that's why there is this separation. And this is called gated communities, something we see daily. Now, chapter 3 is environment and societies. MCQs from that chapter. One of the example of greenhouse gases among these methane, ozone, oxygen, hydrogen, which is a greenhouse gas. Methane, definitely. Methane is the greenhouse gas. From the given item, which is not an environmental problem. Resource depletion, pollution, global warming, afforestation. Resource depletion is a problem. Pollution again is a problem. Global warming, definitely a problem. Afforestation, what is afforestation? Afforestation involves planting of trees. That's not an environmental problem. So the answer is afforestation. Now, the excessive use of non-renewable natural resource is the main reason for resource depletion. So we get the definition of resource depletion. What is it? When the non-renewable resources are depleted because of their excessive use. Non-renewable resources can actually deplete and they are not renewable. So when they are used excessively, without any control, without more than required, or more, when used more than required, they deplete. Now, what is the major reason for global warming? The major reason is greenhouse gases. Bhopal disaster happened in which year? 1984. Always remember the year. Write an example for man-made environmental disaster. A man-made environmental disaster is Bhopal gas tragedy. It's an example of a man-made disaster. An example of a natural environmental disaster, tsunami is an example. Who is the founder of the Institute for Social Ecology? Murray Bookchin. Now, this is not a very common PYQ and all, but it is good to remember. Institute for Social Ecology was founded by Murray Bookchin. One demerit of genetic modification. It leads to sterile seeds. Genetic modification has the advantages of more yield and efficient uh, production and all. But another one demerit is sterile seeds that emerge from the interaction between biophysical ecology and human intervention. The answer is social environment. Now, again, this is a very general kind of statement, right? What is social environment? Social environment is created when biophysical ecology and human interventions kind of interact together. It makes the social environment. Social is not just, it's not just the nature, but also the human interaction or human intervention that makes it social. Now we are down to the last two chapters of Western sociologists and Indian sociologists. From these two chapters, definitely it is important to remember the thinkers, their works, what all they worked on, their books, and all. We'll be discussing the PYQs and let's revise them together. Dash wrote the book Street Corner Society about a street gang in Italian American slum. We discussed this before. The answer is William Foote White. So we know that the book is called Street Corner Society. What was it about? It was about street gangs in Italian American slums. The same question is repeated. The Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism is the book by Max Weber. This also we have discussed before. The concept of class struggle is derived by whom? Is derived by Karl Marx. Who wrote the book The Elementary Forms of Religious Life? The book Elementary Forms of Religious Life was written by Emile Durkheim, who's known as the child of the age of revolution. Sociology is the child of the age of revolution. There was industrial revolution happening, there was enlightenment happening, there was French Revolution happening. So sociology as a discipline grew or was formed as a result of all these revolutions parallelly happening and the social changes that were happening in that context. And that is why sociology is known as the child of the age of revolution. Now, an intellectual and cultural revolution which took place during the 17th and 18th centuries in Western Europe, and the movement that placed humans at the center of the universe is Enlightenment. Again, 17th and 18th century intellectual and cultural revolution should connect to Enlightenment. Now, the other question is the movement that placed humans at the center of the universe. Please remember that. The answer is Enlightenment. The revolution which held the theory of political sovereignty. Theory of political sovereignty was held by French Revolution. The country in which the Industrial Revolution started. So the question always would be when did it start? Because it definitely was spread across the globe. Industrial Revolution did not just happen in a single place in the world. But where did it start? It started in Britain. Dash led to the emergence of factory system. Also, another question is after which revolution do health, hygiene, regulation of crimes, and a public development went under the control of the state? Industrial Revolution was the reason. A factory system emerged. Also, all these areas of health, hygiene, crime regulation, public development all went under the control of the state. Industrial Revolution is the answer. What was the base of Marx's concept about economic system? Marx's concept is based on mode of production. There is mode of production. There is an economic base and a superstructure, right? And it is the mode of production that determines the kind of social relationships each social system might have. So the basis, mode of production. Now, idea of alienation was put forward by Karl Marx again. Now, sociologists who analyzed sociology as the study about social facts, the author of the elementary forms of religious life, who's known as the second founder of sociology. All these questions, the answer is Emile Durkheim. Sociology is the study of social facts. This is something Durkheim talks about. What are social facts? He defines them and all. Also has written about religious life and is also called second founder of sociology. Please remember all this. Now, who argued that social action is the subject matter of sociology? The sociologist who suggested the method of inquiry like empathetic understanding and ideal type. Who argued that social action is the subject matter of sociology? It's the same question that is repeated twice. So, when Emile Durkheim said that sociology is the study of social facts, Max Weber was of the opinion that it is social action that is the subject matter of sociology. Social facts, Durkheim, social action, Weber. Now, another uh, thing that is particular of Weber is the idea of ideal types and also method of inquiry like empathetic understanding, hermeneutics, which we can discuss later at some time. But these are terms that will help you to connect it to Max Weber, method of inquiry of empathetic understanding and ideal type. Now, coming to the last chapter, Indian sociologists. Again, as I said, it's important to uh, go through all the sociologists and their work. It is mentioned in the textbook. There are boxes given, and you should go through that and have an understanding of what all they studied, what all they looked at, what are their works, and all. Nash is considered as the father of institutionalized sociology in India. What is the answer? G.S. Gure. In India, the father is G.S. Gure. First university with the study of sociology began in India. It began in Bombay University in 1990. When did sociology receive importance as a science? It was during the British period that sociology received the importance as science. Who was the first self-taught anthropologist scholar to receive national and international recognition? L.K. Ananthakrishna Iyer. This is again in the first page of our last chapter, Indian sociologist. Make sure that you remember the names, or at least when you see the question, make sure that the name comes to your mind from the options. Who founded the journal Man in India in 1922? Sharat Chandra Roy is the answer. Founder of institutionalized sociology in India, G.S. Gure. Founder of the Indian Sociological Society, G.S. Gure. Indian sociologist who made famous studies on caste and race, again, G.S. Gure. G.S. Gure has a book, Caste and Race in India. He has extensively studied that and has come up with several features of caste or characteristics of caste and all, known as the founder of institutionalized sociology, also the founder of Indian Sociological Society. Now, who wrote the book Introduction to Indian Music? And also, uh, who is the sociologist who conducted deep studies about Indian tradition? D.P. Mukherjee or Durga Prasad Mukherjee. Durga Prasad Mukherjee is associated with the concept of living tradition as well because he conducted several studies on Indian tradition and all. So that is one another concept that is associated to him. If it comes as a question, please answer that living tradition was a concept used by D.P. Mukherjee to explain Indian tradition at a particular point in time. He also wrote the book Introduction to Indian Music. Three principles of change recognized by Indian traditions are Shruti, Smriti, and Anubhava. This is again from D.P. Mukherjee's works. So Indian traditions go through change. Shrutis, Smritis, and Anubhava go through change is his point. Who is the author of Social Background of Indian Nationalism? This was written by A.R. Desai. And another essay that he wrote was The Myth of the Welfare State. So these two works are attributed to A.R. Desai. Please remember his works. Who was the best known Indian sociologist of the post independence era? M.N. Srinivas was the best known. Who introduced the idea that caste is more important than village? Lou Udimo talked about how caste can actually determine the way people live, or the way they treat each other, the way they have food, and several other things, and how it is more important than the village. Now we have a match the following question where we have to match columns B and C to A. In column A, we have G.S. Ture, D.P. Mukherjee, A.R. Desai, M.N. Srinivas, Sharat Chandra Roy. B. Welfare state, accidental anthropologist, village studies, tradition and change, caste and race. In C, we have man in India, the social background of Indian nationalism, caste and race in India, argument with Louis Dumont, and introduction to Indian music. Now let's match it. G.S. Gure, caste and race in India. D.P. Mukherjee, tradition and change, introduction to Indian music is one of his books. A.R. Desai, welfare state, the social background of Indian nationalism. M.N. Srinivas, village studies, had an argument with Louis Dumont. Sharad Chandra Roy, accidental anthropologist, and began the journal, I think, Man in India. Another match the following: Karl Marx, Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, Humanism, French Revolution, Social Facts, Declaration of Human Rights, Alienation, Social Action, the Enlightenment. If we match these, Karl Marx, Alienation, Emile Durkheim, Social Facts, Max Weber, Social Action, Humanism, the Enlightenment, French Revolution, Declaration of Human Rights. So many of these MCQs were taken from the HSS Live website. There is a compilation, but I hope that the video format helps you to listen to it properly, revise, and you know, kind of keep it in your memory alive rather than reading that PDF. So thank you for watching the video. I hope that the video was helpful, both the part one and the part two. And I'll be coming back with more PYQs. Next time, we'll be discussing longer answer questions, essay type questions, 4 markers, 5 markers, So, hope to see you in that video. Thank you for listening.